So this is the third day of this October 2017 retreat here at the Franciscan Center, and the title of the retreat is Key Points of the Path of Awakening, Teachings of the Zen Masters. And how we've been fortunate over these past 2 days to have several wonderful teachings from some of the Zen Masters, such as Bodhidharma, Wiko, Zen Master Dogen, Zen Master Shuyin, Empty Cloud. We are fortunate that we have available to us these words of great wisdom that are not from book learning at all, but that come from their direct experience of being a human being and walking this path to awakening. So having done this journey themselves in their human body, with their human mind, with all their defilements, with all their stuff, and having, so to speak, reached the other shore, rather than just enjoying life on the other shore, they have been willing to stay in this world with us, to show us the way so we can benefit from their experience. It is only out of their deep compassion that they have done this. So we should be very grateful for our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors. And traditionally, in the practice traditions, becoming acquainted not only with the teachings, but the lives of the Master, when there are good either autobiographies or biographies available that really give us kind of an inner sense of their life, have always been studied, because there is a great meaning in their lives, and to understand how they practiced and how they dealt with things and how they manifested themselves in this world. It can be very instructive for us. We can learn from them. And we are fortunate that even today there are great teachers alive who are showing us very clearly what an enlightened life looks like. Notice how they live. Notice how they spend their time. Notice what they devote their energy to. Notice how they are with people. And that can be great models for us in our own development. So, a lot of practice and teaching went on yesterday. Is there anything unclear about the practices and the teachings that have gone on for the last 2.5 days? Anything not clear? Good. So then we will continue. I did get a note from somebody aware of psychophysical connection. I have observed that when I am positioned so there is no pain, then the mental tapes easily pass from my mind, but when pain is present, the mental tapes continue playing. In order to relieve pain, moving is necessary. I do not experience adjusting position as breaking the focus of meditation time. Will you please say something about this? I guess I could. So what's find interesting to me is the pain in the physical body and the moving the position of the physical body to give some relief to the pain is understandable, isn't it? But the question about the tapes, you see, the mental tapes, that when I move, I relieve the mental tapes that are present when there is pain. And that, to me, is what's most interesting from the practice point of view. Because that is really the way most of us function in the world, right? To relieve the mental tapes, we do something to distract ourselves, to cover things over, to change the subject, right? There was somebody, I think yesterday or today, in one of the small groups said they spent their whole life very involved in the activities of their life, collecting information, analysis, news, reading, endlessly busy. And they realized, beside the functionality of that in terms of their work, they really use that whole way of being in the world as a way not to have to deal with themselves. And again, if we relieve our unpleasant mental tapes by doing something else than dealing directly with the mental tapes, we are doing nothing to remediate the mental tapes. They are still there. And they will come up again and again and again when they are triggered by situations. So, it is these mental tapes, which again are just one new way. In the old days they didn't have tapes. So we don't find in the traditional teachings talking about mental tapes. When you hear that, that's kind of, no, that's somebody of the last 20, 30 years. But whether we call them mental tapes, whether we call them our stories, whether we call them our dramas, whether we call them our issues, whether we call them our mental formations, whether we call them our perceptions, whether we call them our thought, whatever you want to call them, it is that we need to transform so we can be free. If we are always alleviating our mental, emotional pain by doing something else than actually facing it directly in mindfulness and awareness and with compassion and understanding, healing and transforming, we will endlessly be have to dealing with this stuff. Now, there are probably many people in this room who realize, yeah, I have been endlessly dealing with my stuff my whole lifetime. And perhaps as of the years gone by, I've gotten better at it. Right? My coping skills are better. And especially since I've learned some mindfulness and some Dharma, my coping skills are even better. But the essentiality of our delusive, afflictive mind, egocentric, has not really, in its essential quality, been touched. We have been working around the edges, right? We have been pruning the bush, so to speak. And again, a nicely pruned bush does look better than unnice, so I'm not denying that. But, maybe the bush doesn't need to be there at all, you see. We never thought of that, you see. That's thinking outside the box. Maybe I'll just pull the bush out. They don't have to be out there pruning it every week. Oh, I never liked that bush. I never even planted it. I don't know, the people who owned the house before planted. I never even liked these kinds of, it's like, thinking outside the box, right? Instead, we just prune, week after week. Yeah. So I want to share with you and I'm sorry to say, I don't have his dates. This is a Chinese Chan Zen master named Han Shan. Now, some of you who may be familiar with Chinese Buddhist tradition, there is a famous Han Shan who was a poet and a hermit, and his poems are called Cold Mountain, for those of you who are into that kind of stuff. You may know. This is not that Han Shan. And I hate to say this, but I know this is being recorded. I think he's kind of 15th, 16th century. He's a little later. But these are from the maxims, called the Maxims of Master Harshan, and the text is called Journey to Dreamland. And again, for those who want the reference, I really can't give it, but I noticed that like the verses that are on these 2 pages go from 1, 4, 5, 7, 38, 53, 54, 55, 63. So obviously at some point I selected. Okay, so this is not, and I can't take responsibility for he who selected them all because I have no recollection. But anyhow, this is what I brought with me. And again, Master Hanshan Maxim's Journey to Dreamland. So the first one reads, when we preach the Dharma to those who see only the ego's illusory world, we preach in vain. We might as well preach to the dead. How foolish are they who turn away from what is real and true and lasting, and instead pursue the fleeting shapes of the physical world, shapes that are mere reflections in the ego's mirror. Not caring to peer beneath the surfaces, deluded beings are content to snatch images. They think that the material world's ever-flowing energy can be modified into permanent forms, that they can name and value these forms and then, like great lords, exert dominion over them. Wow. How incisive. Let me read it again. Now again, as you're getting, for those of you who are new or newer, just the same way Shu Yun and Master Dogen, great meditation masters, great writers of meditation manuals, begin with these kind of prerequisites, right? In the same way, Master Hanshan, because if we don't kind of get the world straight, then it's very difficult to gain any real benefit from practice. So the teachers of old have spent a lot of time kind of helping us kind of view things clearly. Right? Because we view things as solid and permanent or permanent. And that causes us so much suffering. The teachers talk a lot about impermanence and tell us to reflect on impermanence. Because in the face of the unfolding of life, we are often angry and confused and disappointed and afraid, etc. The teachers give us cause and effect. Understand that things are unfolding because of a reason, cause and effect. So, because we can so easily fritter away our life in meaningless pursuits, the teachers give us the teaching about the preciousness of human life, the preciousness of having the time and the leisure to encounter the Dharma, to have the time and leisure to practice, to encounter teachings, etc. They give us these kinds of teachings. So he's giving us a teaching, right? Or like Shu Yun, right? Remember the guest and the host? Again, he said, before you practice, get this one, right? It's like, this is like just a general kind of way of looking at life, Notice, based on impermanence and karma, notice that everything's just passing through. Right? Thoughts are just arising and passing. Experiences just arising and passing. You'd think we would have noticed that. It's like so obvious, right? You'd think we would have noticed it, but we continue in our dream of permanence, right? So therefore they go, remember like yesterday, host, and he explains what a host is. Guest, and he explains what a guest is. For those who don't get that, he talks about dust, and you know what I mean? It's like, Have you noticed that everything you've ever thought is gone? Do you notice that every drama that you've had your whole life, positive and negative, is gone, has disappeared? Right? Have you noticed that every moment of this retreat that you experienced is gone? Right? See, because we don't notice that, and because we fixate on that which is essentially temporary and impermanent and illusory, the Masters, over and over, very patiently, right, give us these teachings, over and over. Okay? So, we have to ask ourselves, am I one of those who only see the self's illusory world? Right? In terms of what we learned yesterday, not understanding that there is something true and lasting and permanent in a sense, our true nature, our Buddha nature. We turn away from that and we are only obsessively fixated on the guess. Okay? And even these guess, we're not seeing clearly. As Gunther shared with us in Marie, we don't even see clearly, right? Because they're distorted they're distorted in the funhouse mirror of self. We don't see clearly. We're interpreting everything. What do we interpret everything? In terms of ourself, our ideas, our views, our likes, our dislikes, our judgments. So we're not even seeing anything clearly. Right? Everything we think we see is being distorted by self. Not caring to peer beneath the surface, which is what we do here. We're content to snatch at these images. We're endlessly snatching at the guess, the momentary pleasures, the momentary information, the momentary sensation, the momentary movie, the momentary, endlessly, we're snatching, trying to grab some happiness. People talk that way, just trying to grab some happiness in this life. Snatching, reifying. Snatching images of things that are just appearing in our mind. They think the material world's ever-flowing energy can be modified, made permanent, and that we name them, and then we can hold on to them, and then we can dominate them. We can dominate people, right? We declare dominion over the people in our life, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about. We declare dominion over them. We name them, and then we declare dominion over them, and because dominion means what? They are here for what purpose? For me. To give me happiness. To give me a sense of worth and value. Right? Right? To make me happy. We declare dominion over the things of the world. Well, the world. The world's not going the way I want it. Right? Hey. Don't those in the world understand this is my dominion? Right? Don't those politicians in Washington know this is my dominion and they're supposed to be doing it the way I want them to do, right? Isn't that true? As well as everybody else in the world? Right? Everybody we're always judging and criticizing, right? Blah, blah. Because this is the ego's dominion. Material things are like dead things, and the ego cannot vivify them. As the great Lord, by his very identity, attached to his kingdom, the ego, when it attaches itself to material objects, presides over the realm of the dead. The Dharma is for the living. The permanent cannot abide in the ephemeral. True and lasting joy cannot be found in the ego's world of changing illusion. No one can drink the water of a mirage. if you wonder why your endless pursuit of these objects of the world, these pleasures of the world, these entertainments of the world, these goals and objectives of the world have not given you lasting pleasure and meaning, it is because they are mirages. And like he says, if you are thirsty, even though you can imagine water, that will not satisfy your thirst. And the pleasures and they will not satisfy us. They can't. But you all understand that, right? That's why you're here. If you're still under the illusion they can, please reflect on what the Master is telling us. What is this next verse says, what is the best way to sever our attachment to material things? First, we need a good sharp sword. The sword of discrimination. The sword of discernment. One that cuts through appearances and exposes the real. Every morning we chant the name of Manjusri, right? The Bodhisattva of wisdom. If you see Manjusri, he has a sword in the iconography. He wields a sword. It is the sword of wisdom. It is the sword of discrimination. It's a sword that cuts through delusion, cuts through ignorance, right? To reveal the true nature of things. We begin by making a point of noticing how quickly we become dissatisfied with material things. Okay, so again, he's telling us this is our practice, right? The first bite might have been delicious. The second bite, a little delicious, but a little less so. By the time you get to the end, it's what? It's a chore. Well, I got to finish my plate. I'm already full. You know what I mean? What happened to the pleasure? Right? I mean, these days people binge watch. I don't binge watch, but I know people binge watch. And people seem to binge watch, it's kind of the latest saying, maybe you probably know more about it than I do, with great excitement, right? Can't wait to get home to watch whatever it is, right? But then it's over. And that excitement and the pleasure or whatever is gone, right? Right? And so what do we have to do the next day? Get ourselves all revved up again. Right? And the next day. And decades go by this way. Right? He tells us to watch it. Watch it. All excited going out to a new restaurant. Right? It's exciting, isn't it? And then it's over. And forgive me for saying it, but it goes to the same place that all the other meals went to. Right? I mean, that's it. Right? So again, it doesn't mean that worldly life doesn't have pleasures, but they're ephemeral. Ephemeral means they don't last. They don't last more than the experience, and they oftentimes leave us feeling dissatisfied, like the addict. We get when we go up a little bit, then when we come down, life is boring. A little boring. Right? The movie's over. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next to keep ourselves excited? The meal's over. It's always amazing to me. How much effort people put into like cooking a really good meal? And then it's like, it's over. And a lot of times the people who ate it have been talking the whole time. So other than a little comment about this is delicious, nobody really even tasted it really well. And it's over. And where are you? Where are you, Maria? In the kitchen, cleaning the dishes, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, there it is again. Right? I mean, what was I so looking for? Why was I making such a big deal about this? Anyhow, we have to reflect on this. With persistent awareness, we sharpen and hone the sword. Before long, we find that we seldom have to use it. We've cut down all the old desires, and new ones don't dare to bother us. Okay? We're content. We don't need constant excitement and pleasure and stimulation. Right? If it comes our way, fine. If it doesn't come our way, fine. Right? Because we're finding happiness, state of well-being from something else. Right? Is that clear? Right? When good guests come, are we happy? Yeah. But it's not as if we were miserable when they weren't there, you see. You know? It's like, it's all good. It's good when they're not here. It's good when they're here. It's good when they go. It's all good. Why is it all good? Because we are in touch with the basic goodness of our own mind. We are not endlessly focusing on the guests, those things that just come and go. I mean, is this clear? Okay. This doesn't mean, you just have to eat brown rice for the rest of your life. Right? Unless you want to. There may be healthy reasons. You know what I'm saying? But it means that our approach to life is one of greater ease. We don't grasp, we don't fixate, we don't yearn for, we don't must have. And again, it's not like it's indifferent. It's people go, oh, that sounds frightening. Does that mean like we're indifferent? Give me anything you want. Yeah. Cold oatmeal, fine. Don't even bother to cook it. I mean, that's where people go. Oh, ooh, is that what he's saying? Ooh, taking away all my pleasures. I don't like it. Taking away my Netflix binging. Ooh. Right? Taking away hours and hours and hours cruising around Facebook. And ooh, I don't hope he's not saying that. Right? It's ease, it's moderation, it's freedom. That's what this path is about. I mean, any questions about this? It's important that we understand that the teachers spend a lot of time giving these kinds of teachings, as well as the meditation, the mindfulness, the concentration, because if we don't get our life straight, we're always agitated. And it's very difficult to calm the mind. It's very difficult to have a clear mind if it's always being roiled up by desires and, how do you feel when your desires get frustrated? Anybody ever have their desires frustrated? And what happens? How do you feel? Happy? No. I mean, it's a setup. And we don't realize we've set ourselves up because we had that desire, that outcome we wanted. Then when it doesn't turn out the way we want, we are disappointed, we're hurt, we're angry. And we think the problem is because of, that, and not our own mind that's projecting on that. So are there any questions? Did you have a question? Yes.
Did you say how to get the sword? You said what it was made of.
He said it's a sword of discrimination, right? The sword of discernment, that we can see the false from the true, right? That when we go to this, like when we go to the shopping, right? These days, every package has the ingredients on them, right? And if you're looking for healthy, nutritious food, right, you just read the description. Now, these days, because of the way things are promoted, junk is promoted as healthy. So you got to read the ingredients, right? You can't just read what they tell you. This is a natural junk food. Right? I mean, it's kind of very interesting. You know what I mean? You know, a vegan junk food. You know. Yes.
How do these teachers deal with the
Well, hold on, just a second. I don't think. Let me just finish. So this is the sort of discrimination, okay? That we're able to discriminate the true from the false, the host from the guest, the permanent from the impermanent, the wholesome from the unwholesome, the meaningful from the meaningless. Right? This is the sword. Right? And of course, the Dharma gives us criteria for these things. But this is, they're saying we need this. Right? Because again, if we look at the condition of our mind and why it's always roiled up, it's really roiled up because of this stuff. We just don't have any discernment. We let anything in. Right? So this discrimination is important. And like he's saying, if we just observe, we can see that. We can see host and guest. We can see impermanence. We can see, what are all these activities that I'm endlessly doing? What are they really giving me? What have they really given me? It's a good thing to reflect on. Yes, Alex.
when the teachers deal with the issue of progress, how there are some people who are visionaries who see things that we don't see, and they see things as what they could be, and there's progress as a result of that. It's not just, what do you need now, but it's more in the future. How do you deal with that component of society or civilization?
Well, so the question is, Alex is saying, it's not simply just being present to what's ever going on and dealing, wisely and discriminatingly with what's ever going on. There is some forward motion, both for the individual and for society. Yes, there is. It's like Maria said yesterday, well, what about creativity? What about the capabilities of this human mind? And I said, it has wonderful capabilities, obviously. But, it depends who's using it, right? There are a lot of very disturbed people using creativity for very disturbed reasons, right? We have a very creative president now. He's incredibly creative, right? So there you go. Yeah, so we have a vision. Becoming a Buddha, becoming a Bodhisattva, healing and transforming is a forward vision, right? We may have a vision for an enlightened society where people, are governed by wisdom and understanding, where people treat each other with compassion and kindness, where we all take care of each other, right? So I think in these teachings, that's all there. And that's obviously what motivates us, right? Like somebody said to me this morning, well, how do you, wisdom, compassion, emptiness, but how does that relate to, helping the world? Well, that's what it's all about. Right? Right? There's no such thing as the world that we're going to help, but there are people that we can help. Right? We're not going to help all 6 billion. Maybe we could help some, 1, 2, me, right? But it's all in the service, of vision. Yeah, I think Buddhism is, to me, the vision of Buddhahood, the path of the Bodhisattva is probably the most wonderful, creative vision for what a meaningful life is about. What could be more meaningful, than cultivating all the potential of this human mind and dedicating it to alleviating the suffering of the world. What is a better vision than that, right, for an individual? But when we have the vision, many people have vision, but they're not good at the implementation, right? We want to be, this is both. We want to have the big vision, the big aspiration, but we want to implement it moment to moment. So then it's congruent, right? The moment to moment, day to day, situation to situation is congruent. You see, it's not case by case because, Alex may say, well, what's the big deal if I go out to this restaurant? You know what I mean? And I heard it was a good restaurant. I'd like to try it, right? And I'd say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not evil or sinful, right? You know what I'm saying? In the immediacy of it, it's really about what are you doing with your life, you see? You see? In the bigger picture of things, whether I binge watch Netflix tonight or not, it's like, so what? Right? But if I'm in a process of transformation, of changing the way I live, then the little things do matter. Right? The great Tibetan yogi Padmasambhava said, my vision is vast as the sky, but my intention to the smallest detail of my life is as fine as a grain of sand. So very attentive to how we put our shoes. When I take off my shoes, am I aware of what I'm doing? When I walk in the Dharma hall, am I aware of what I'm doing? Right? When I take my seat, am I aware of what I'm doing? So I'm cultivating moment-to-moment attention. Why? Not so, I get the award for having the neatest shoes, right? Because I want to cultivate mindfulness, attentiveness, the capacity to be present to life. Big picture, right? But, that's where people get frustrated. They go, well, I've been practicing all these years and I want to be a bodhisattva and I want to transform and I want to heal and I want to benefit people. Why do I still have the same crap going on in my head? Why does the same stuff still trigger me? But people, right? People here may have that same issue. But why? Well, it's because, transformation occurs in these moment-to-moment doing things differently. Right? And when you add up all those moments, eventually there's a tipping point. It's like he says here. What did he say? Before long, with persistent awareness, we sharpen and hone the sword of discrimination, the sword of discernment. Before long, we find that we seldom have to use it, right? So let's say you just you just never thought about food, right? You just ate whatever tasted good to you, right? And now you kind of what? You kind of learned about, well, maybe the doctors told you you have diabetes and you got heart condition. And some of it, let's say you gone to a good doctor and he goes, a lot of it could be related to diet. Oh, well, now I got to pay attention to my diet, right? So for the first time, when you go in the grocery store, you begin to pay attention to ingredients, right? What's healthy, what's not healthy, what's good for a heart. Well, you know what I'm saying, like that, right? And you have to be very conscious because your impulses are to go to the, to the cereal line or something, cereal. You know what I'm saying? You just don't, right? So you have to be very careful. You have to be very attentive. Right? You have to learn a new way of cooking. Right? But if you continue doing that, and there may be people in this room, right? Over time, it's not so difficult, is it? Right? Right? Just nod your head if you agree with me. It's not difficult. Right? You know what good food is. You don't have to kind of, it's not a struggle not to go to the junk food. You go naturally to the good food. When you prepare food, you prepare it in a way that's healthy. It's not like you have to really work at it. right? And over time it becomes, this is the same thing. That's what he's saying. Anything over time, if you're persistent, will become natural. I remember once I met a man. Oh no, maybe I heard him speak. I think he was an Afro-American doctor who's an exponent of the vegan diet. And he said, my biggest problem, is when I deal with my own people, because they'll tell me, well, I'm Afro-American, we eat chitlins and we eat, all this, heavy, greasy, just heart attack food. And he said, I say to them, you didn't come out of the womb eating chitlins. It's like, it's that way, we think, oh, well, this is the way I am. But it's not the way we are. It's the way we've been conditioned. And the freedom is we realize we can recondition ourselves. Is that clear? Yeah, it's simple. Now this is verse 7. Our mind and body are by nature pure, but we sully them with unskillful, unwholesome thoughts and deeds. In order to restore ourselves to our original purity, we need only to clean away the accumulated dirt. So this is again, one of these key ideas in Buddhism, right? Our original nature is unsullied. It's pure. It is not dirty. It is not sullied. Our pure nature, our Buddha nature, our host is as pure today as it was at birth. It hasn't changed. What has happened is it's gotten covered over. Dirt has accumulated by our unskillful, unwholesome thoughts and deeds. We only need to clean away the dirt. It's not that hard, right? You see, if we had to go somewhere and go, I have to fabricate an unsullied, pure nature for myself. Anybody know how to do that? You're a man of science, Alex. Is there any scientific way to go about creating an unsullied, pure self-nature? No. So how wonderful that we don't have to do it. You see, it's already here. All we need to do is clean away the accumulated dirt. What is that? Wrong thoughts, wrong actions. But how do we proceed with this cleansing process? Please pay attention. Do we put a barrier between us and the occasions of our bad habits? That's a good idea. Right? I'll just barrier. Put up a wall. Right? Do we put up a barrier between us and the occasions of our bad habits? Do we remove ourselves from the places of temptation? That's another good solution. He's a bright guy. The problem is out there. I just won't go there anymore. The problem is these thoughts and these memories. I'll just put up a wall. I'll just close it off. Or when it comes up, I just won't go there. I'll go do something else. Right? Oh, that's a good solution. You see? You see how we're always manipulating. He says, no. We cannot claim victory by avoiding the battle. Right? We cannot claim victory by avoiding the battle. Just because we're not dealing with something does not make us victorious. The enemy, and he's using, something that's familiar to people, is not our surroundings. It is in ourselves. Now again, I would imagine everybody in this room say, well, I know that. But watch your mind. And really see whether you really live by this. The enemy is not in our surroundings, it is in ourselves. We have to confront ourselves and try to understand our human weakness. We have to take an honest look at ourselves, at our relationships, and our possessions, and ask, what all our self-indulgence has gotten us? Has it brought us happiness? Surely not. So some of you may be surprised by this, right? These kinds of teachings, right? You see, we came for mindfulness, didn't we? We came for meditation, didn't we? Why is this great meditation teacher talking about this? Right? Because he's trying to help us. See, if all our energy is going endlessly into worldly pursuits, then there's very little energy left over for pursuit of the meaningful. Right? I mean, people say these days, I am so busy, I got so much going on in my life, I don't have any time to meditate. Anybody ever hear that? Anybody ever hear that within their own mind? I'm so busy. Busy doing what? I mean, what is more meaningful than the transformation, the healing of your mind? What is more meaningful?
Having your ID stolen from the data breach will create a lot of work.
Yeah, so we're not talking about that, are we? We're talking about the way we live our lives day to day, our priorities. Right? I mean, if you really want to be free of suffering, if you really want to be of benefit to beings, by your own wisdom and compassion, that you really can help people. Not with Band-Aids, not just simply with hugs, which are all helpful, but really help people get at why they're really unhappy, why they even have afflictive emotions, why they suffer from depression and anxiety and sleep problems and eating problems, addiction problems, right? Just unsatisfactoriness. If you really want to help people get down to the essence of things, then we have to first do it ourselves, so we know the way, right? Using the analogy yesterday, I talked about climbing a mountain. I mean, if you go hire a guide, and the first day out you go, so what's it like to climb this mountain? And the guide says, I don't know, I've never been up here. Gee, I thought you were the one who. You go, what? No, I want to go with a guide who's been up there. I mean, wouldn't you? Yeah. How do we become a guide for people? Even in a small way. We do much goodness in this world. There's so much good charity, right? Right? We might, what? Give some money to someone who's hungry, or to peoples who are hungry, right? And we may give medicine, so they're no longer sick. Are those good things? Right. And now that they're feeling better and have more energy, you know what they may do? Remember, who they hate, and go take after them. Right? So even though we have physically helped people, it doesn't mean that the fundamental delusions of their mind have been taken care of, right? I mean, we have to. So this is why in Buddhism, while there's certainly a very strong, of helping people, we understand that helping people just on that level does not really get at what the human problem is, does it? Right? People are right now amazed in our country or the Western world. Oh my God, hate, intolerance, fascism. I can't believe it. Well, how can you not believe it? These things arise in the human mind. They were never eradicated, right? Right. So of course they'll continue to arise. Knowing that, we have to understand that if we really want to transform the world, we have to find ways of helping transform people. The mind. We have to take an honest look at ourselves, our relationships, and our possessions and ask, what has all our self-indulgence has gotten us? Has it brought us happiness? Surely not. So we need to meditate. We need to reflect in these ways. Again, we're very busy. This kind of reflection we don't often do. Retreat's a good time to reflect in this deep way about our life. He says, if we are ruthlessly honest, we'll have to admit that it was our foolish egotism that has soiled us. This admission is painful to make. Well, if we want to melt ice, we have to apply heat. I mean, quite wonderful, eh? Well, if we want to melt ice, we have to apply heat. And then he goes even further and says, the hotter the fire, the quicker the ice melts. Kind of wonderful, these ancient teachers, just kind of put it right to it. Right? Yeah. If we want to break out of our frozen ice palace, of our fixations. We're frozen. We're frozen in time. Many people are frozen in time. They're still dealing with childhood issues or relationship issues from the past or this old hurts and pains, right? It's like we're frozen. Solid. Year after year. And he says, if you want to melt the ice, you have to apply heat. This is the heat of wisdom. This is the heat of understanding. Right? So it is with wisdom. The more intense our scrutiny, the quicker we will attain wisdom. The more intense, the more way we actually are scrutinizing our life. There is nothing that has been shared that we ourselves cannot come to the same conclusions if we are willing to what? To scrutinize. To step back from our life and ask ourselves. Like he says, and he said it can be painful. It's hard for us to admit that the source of our suffering is ourselves, isn't it? Many of us have a laundry list of people and situations and conditions why we suffer. Is that not true? And just to finally give it up and go, no, I suffer because of my own mind. I'm suffering because of my own ego. That is why I suffer. There's nothing out there. Just life's unfolding. Any emotional affliction, any afflictive thought, mind state that's arising, it is arising only in my own mind, nowhere else. That's a tremendous kind of... A lot of people might be going, oh, I don't like that one. I mean, can I blame somebody? See, I mean, that's kind of, wow, that's a big one. To really grow up and take responsibility. I cannot control what happened to me as a child. I cannot control what happened to me as an adolescent, 20s, 30s, 40s, and however old you are. But right now, the traces of all those experiences that have passed only exist in my mind and nowhere else. And I have the methodology, to heal and transform. Am I going to use it? Am I going to devote enough time and energy and prioritize it or not? The more intense our scrutiny, the quicker we will attain wisdom. When we grow large in wisdom, we dwarf our old egotistical self. The contest is then over. The same exact thing that he said before. If we persist, eventually, egoism, egocentricity will cease. The contest will be over. Right now, many of us, it's a struggle, right? Selfish part, selfless part, altruistic part. Many of us, our inner landscape is struggle. It's a contest. How much longer are we going to struggle? The contest is then over. Any questions about this? Again, this is deep stuff. It is worthy of deep reflection. Yes.
To me, all of this sounds like wise people.
It is wise. Yep.
Like it sounds like razor sharp scrutiny, sword. This is through illusion. It's just seeing things properly.
Yep. That's all it is. But because we don't, right? We need.
So that's the task that we're describing here. Is like sharpening that wise view.
Yep. The sword of discrimination, the sword of clear discernment. Yep. You're exactly right.
Love it.
Good. Practice it. To have a sword but leave it in the scabbard. Thank you. Right? To have a sword but to leave it in the scabbard is not much use. Right? Got to take it out and wield it. Right? Guy like you, every time delusion rears its head, just take out that sword. Cut it off.
I just wish that I didn't forget this stuff when it seems to matter the most.
Well, you gotta, welcome to the club.
It's easy now.
Well, that's what practice is, right? We come on retreat so we can really learn these things and get these things, right? But you're absolutely right. If we leave it here or leave the sword, at home, when we're going about our world, no benefit or mild benefit. Yeah. So that's practice. Got to remember to take your sword to work with you. Don't leave it at home. Don't leave it here at the Franciscan Center. Take it home with you. Every day in your morning meditation, sharpen it. And then wield it during the day. That's a great practitioner who can do that. Yes?
I understand the concept of moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom is not suggesting to totally give up things that one enjoys. But where does the thing I'm struggling a little bit with is the concept of happy memories, right? As long as you don't cling to them, what's wrong with having them and those memories that come from experience? So, as an example, when I spend time with my son,
Mm-hmm.
do I go to a baseball game or to a concert?
Mm-hmm.
And there are times I probably went over the top to try and make it happen so that
Mm-hmm.
we could spend the time together.
Mm-hmm.
And if it didn't happen, then I got better at saying, okay, not this time, maybe next time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think he would say he's had a happy childhood, and those are memories that
I mean, is there something intrinsically wrong with that? Of course not. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, what's wrong with happy memories? And Mitch uses the example of his son, and he goes out his way to do positive things with his son, and he hopes that his son will remember them. Well, again, I have a son and daughter, so, and I have grandchildren, so I'm of the same ilk as you. I'm not a monk. I never think about the past. Just be honest. I never think about the past. When I'm with my children, my grandchildren, I'm totally present and do everything I can to create value, right, and happiness in our time together. Right? I mean, that is my intention. Be present. If people remember, don't remember, that's not my concern. Right? I mean, I have a mother, she's 100 years old. She's still alive, some of you know her. If I thought about it, tons of happy memories, but I don't think about it. But whenever, I talk to her, I'm happy to talk with her. Right? And when I visit her, she likes to reminisce, so I'm very happy to reminisce. Yeah, in the present. But, I mean, I don't need to rev myself up with memories to appreciate her now. Because, again, if it happened in life, it is in me. You see? If you have had a positive influence on your son, that is in him. Right? And it could be that when he sees a picture of you or somebody mentions your name, he has a positive feeling. Right? And it doesn't mean like, we had 100th weekend for my mother when she turned 100. And, lots of family came in and people who knew her the whole weekend. And so there was a lot of reminiscing, obviously. Not with her, but also with her, but also, among ourselves, many we hadn't seen. And a lot of what we, is the past, and that's fine. But we did that in the present. Right? Is that? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not clinging to it, or I'm not doing it to create a memory. I'm doing it because in this moment, I want to create value with whoever I'm with, and especially my children. Right? You got it? Good. So we'll do one more. We'll see. This is sort of a variation. Our Buddha nature is always clear and bright. We can't see it because our eyes are darkly veiled with emotional dust. We can't clean dust with dust. And we can't calm emotions with emotions. So how do we remove that veil? We use Dharma wisdom. Enlightenment lifts the veil and illuminates our Buddha face. Okay. So, he's talking about the host, right? He's talking about this. He's talking about that which perceives, that which sees, that which smells, that which tastes, that which touches, that which thinks, that which remembers. What is that, you see? Right? What is this? Not all the guests, right? But what is it that's aware of all these things? You see, what is that? Not the objects in the mirror, but what is the mirror? That's what we're talking about. And that it really is the most salient thing. Right? Because, if you went to a very public place and you went into a very public bathroom, during the course of years, thousands and thousands and thousands of images could have appeared in that mirror, right? All types and shapes and colors, you know. But the essential thing that has always stayed is what? The mirror, in which everything is reflected. This mind of ours, this mirror mind, this pure nature mind of ours, that is what we need to begin to attend to. Do I know the host? And is the vision of the host clear? Is the light shining forth clearly? Our Buddha nature is always clear and bright. We can't see because our eyes are darkly veiled with emotional stuff. We are attending to the what? The guests. I mean, if that mirror was concerned about everybody and every reflection, you know, how would it be? Would it be able to just be there purely reflecting? No, you'd come in there and it'd still be upset about the last person who came in. Right? Right? No. When you look in the mirror, you want what? A pure mirror that reflects things as they really are. Right? If that mirror was nothing but an accumulation of everybody else who had ever been before it, and your reflection was distorted by all that, would you see yourself clearly? No. But that's what it's like. That's our sullied mind. Right? We can't clean dust with dust. We can't calm emotions with emotions. So how do we remove the veil? Dharma wisdom, enlightenment. Right? We have to see things as they really are. We have to clean the dust off the mirror. Clean the dirt, no matter how thick it is, on the mirror of our minds. So the natural brilliance and reflective quality of the mind can shine forth. How do we do that? Through the practices we are doing here. Right? Okay, it all comes back to, mindfulness. Right? Learning to be present to whatever is arising, without judgment, without evaluation, without projection. Right? Mindfulness. Learning to concentrate, helping to really clarify and stabilize this mind. And then, like we're beginning to do, to look into it, so we see more deeply. Right? When we understand, see, most of the time we're trying to deal with our thoughts with more thoughts. That's our solution. As the great Zen Master Bankei says, it's like you have a blood stain on the floor, and you dip your rag in a bucket of blood to clean it up. That's what we're doing all the time. Right? Creating problems by thinking, solving problems by thinking, creating more, we're endlessly cleaning the dust with more dust. And we wonder why we don't get anywhere. Why there's still dust. Because we're using the wrong kind of cleaning agent. I don't know if that one will hold up. Let's see. We're using the wrong kind of cleaning agent. Okay, we want a dust-free. Right? What are those dust-free magnetic kind of cleaning? You know what I mean? It just takes the dust, doesn't leave any impressions. We want a clean rag to clean up the bloodstain, right? Not a dirty rag. So it is with the purification process that mindfulness gives us, the purification process of concentration gives us, and most importantly, the purification that understands the nature of things. when you really come to understand after years of practice that thoughts are illusory, all of them, and it really sinks in deeply, it doesn't matter whether you have good thoughts, bad thoughts, few thoughts, many thoughts. It doesn't matter. They're all just, what? Dust motes in the air. Right? But, to reach that state, one has to just practice in the way that the teachers are teaching us. If we take the issue of self, ego, I would imagine everyone in here would realize, egocentricity, egotism, self-centeredness, selfishness, right? These are all things that I am what? Don't want or working on, right? Right? But you see, for most of us, we're working on it as if it's a real thing. You see? But what if there's really no such thing as self, and you see into that? Then all that work, it's like you don't have to do it anymore. Or if you still are doing work, it's so much easier because there's nothing there. You have understanding. You have wisdom. The heart of wisdom. So the path of practice is really the path of ease. Many people go, "Ooh, it's a hard path." No, it's an easy path. The worldly path is a hard path. Look how hard you've worked in this life. Worked at your jobs, worked at financial security, work at making your relationships work at raising your children. Taking care of your adult parents. Right? Look how hard we've worked. Right? Look how much suffering there's been within us, around us. Right? All the work we do to kind of help ameliorate the suffering in ourselves and other people around us and deal with their dramas and their crises and their meltdowns and their, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Including our own. That's a lot of work. This is easy. And this actually will give results. Because you won't have to go back the next day and endlessly be cleaning. But in our distorted mind, we don't get it. Oh, this is hard. Right? So this is why they say, reflect on your life. Reflect on what's really been hard and where it got you. Where it's gotten you. You make up your own mind. That's what he says. Really self-scrutiny. Look at your life. And you decide what is meaningful and what is meaningless, what is worthy and what is unworthy, what your priorities should be. And again, there are those other teachings, impermanence, death. It's not like we're going to be here forever. Right? We're not going to be here forever. Death, of course, is the big one. But even in terms of the health of our bodies, we don't know, do we? We act as if, disease is something that happens to other people. until it happens to us. And then we go, I can't believe it, that it's happening to me, or it's happening to my loved ones. Talk about denial. So, it's not as if we have all the time in the world. I mean, how much pleasure do you need in this life? I don't know, how much? Something we need to ask ourselves. I mean, is there a certain quantity you need? And when you get there, you go, oh, I'm done. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? I mean, what is it? It's like people with money. You know, it's like, at a certain point you want this much money. Then you get this much money, you want what? Ooh, more money. Not secure yet. And then more money. It's like this endless wheel of dissatisfaction. For what? And people will say what? Well, when I get enough money, then I'll be what? Happy. Or then I'll feel secure in myself. Well, why don't you feel secure in yourself right now? Why don't you be happy right now? Right? Since security and happiness are mind states, right? Once again, we're trying to create a mind state with external things. It doesn't work. But you know all this, don't you? And yet, the energy of this world, this is a very worldly world we live in. Right? Acquiring, getting, having, pleasure seeking is what everybody talks about. You know, people don't talk like this, do they? Like we're talking today. You know, so we live in a very worldly world. That's why it's such a mess. The values that people live by, what people see as the purpose of life. So, yeah, we have to, we have to kind of take ownership of this path. So, are there any questions? Yes. Yes, Darryl. Yeah, I know you now. No,
Yeah, so if you could say more about the paradox of working on something that doesn't exist, working on the self, seeing it from the place of, even creating a shadow of self because I've turned myself into a project. Like the subtle place where the discernment would come in, where you know the difference between working on yourself to the point where it becomes creating something.
right. So again, Daryl's asking a question about the self. And can we say more about the self that's not a self? And I'd much rather tonight, in our meditation, kind of work on it. But can I ask you a question, Daryl? Who's asking the question? Who is it? No, don't think. I'm asking you a very direct question. Who's asking that question? What is that? When you look where that question is being asked from in your own mind, what do you see? Just look. I mean, this is not a trick question. Okay, just look. What do you see? Nothing. So,
So where's the question come from?
well, that's interesting. Yeah, that is worth meditating on. But Daryl, if you would probably your knee-jerk response would usually be, well, who's asking the question? Well, Daryl's asking the question, right? As if there's somebody there, right? But when you stop and you just turn around and look, what do you see? Do you see a little Daryl?
I could, but that would just be making something.
That would just be making. Well, that's good. I'm glad to see you're in reality. That's good. Yeah. So there it is. Right? I mean, this is not high-level metaphysics. This is so simple. Just look. What do you see? There's nothing there, is there? And yet, defending, advancing the self, is what life's about. Protecting, getting its needs met, right? Listening to its every beck and call, right? And yet when you look for this, this tyrant who's run your whole life, Darryl, what do you see? Just look. No, don't think. Just look. What do you see? What's there?
I have to make something up.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to make something up. I'm asking you, when you look into your mind where the self appears dwell, where that voice comes from, what do you see? What do you see? Just say it again. Nothing.
I have to make something up.
Yeah, well, and what if I said, Darryl, how old are you?
60.
All right, Darryl, you've been making it up for 60 years. Well, probably not. Probably the first couple of years you were okay. Right? So it's really not 60 years. But, slowly it was created. And then we identified with it and solidified it and, and reified it and, just endlessly, right? Until then you get to be 60 and you're stuck with it. Or so you think. But because what we're talking about is true, it's easily observable. The problem you have, Darryl, is, are you willing to live with the implications of what you just saw? Because there are big implications for that. Yeah, and giving up all the commands of self, all the drama, hurts and resentments and needs and wants and fears and angers and, endlessly, right? Those are all the dramas of what? Self. You can't have those dramas without a self. And then you look for this self who's been issuing all these commands to you, like this, don't like this, take me out for dinner tonight, right? Right? Binge on Netflix tonight, this thing that's been ordering you around your whole life, you look and you go, there's nothing there. Why am I, every day, it's like, we wake up in the morning waiting for orders. Right? Yeah, well, that's because, that's addiction. Right? And anybody who's come out of addiction knows, you have to go through a period of withdrawal. But it is better on the other side. Okay? Good. Any other questions about anything that's been said today? Yes?
Can there be awareness without self?
Well, you need to find that out. See, these are good questions. These are good questions. Can there be awareness without a self? Well, what came first? Awareness. You're not a stone, are you? Right? You're not some kind of inanimate object, are you? No. You are aware. Right? That's the fundamental substance. And out of that we create all kinds of things. We create selves, we create others. We create, we create the world. We see everything as separate. But that's the world of discrimination, not just the world of labeling. It's really not that way. So again, it's nice to talk about these things, but in meditation we should really, if you have these kinds of questions, look into your own mind, right? Like Darryl did. How long did that take you, Darryl? Yeah. It's just like, It's like, well, we go, gee, in 60 years, I never thought of that. You know what I mean? Like, who's issuing these commands? What is that? Such an obvious question, but it's like we're soldiers reporting for duty. And we never question the orders. Question authority. Isn't that a button people have? Question authority. Well, there's an authority within you who thinks he or she knows everything. Okay? It's about time we start questioning. Good. So again, until we meet tonight, are there any, in terms of practice, everybody clear what to be doing? Don't be shy if you're, so we need to, mindfulness, concentration, these are competencies, these are strengths of mind that we need, not just to have greater insight, but also to maintain the results of the insights. Right? They're a way to strengthen the mind. Right? So it can live in clarity and stability, all the good stuff. So please enjoy the practice.